Now listen, I actually really like a lot of the later Pokemon games, but I still have to talk about this. So it's no secret that Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl were games that were pretty much widely disliked by the community. And I actually didn't mind them. I thought they were totally fine. However, if you're like me, you're old, decrepit, dying, 6 foot in the ground already, you have a fondness for 2D Pokemon. Maybe you just like sprites. I love that era of Pokemon a lot, very dearly. My favorite Pokemon games are the Hoenn games, so Ruby, Sapphire, Emerald. I also loved the remakes, Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire. I know that those are a bit more divisive, which is crazy to me, but I love that region and everything about it. But this isn't about that. There is a channel on YouTube, I can't remember the name, it's gonna be on screen right now, that a couple years ago, they had been doing their own like HD 2D, they're not really remakes, they're more like, I guess like visual concepts for Pokemon and Chrono Trigger and Terranigma, and they look incredible. They did one for Heart Gold and Soul Silver that had my jaw on the floor, and I couldn't help but think, man, I feel like an easy win for Game Freak to get some, you know, positive reinforcement from people would be if we got black and white remakes, but we did them in this HD 2D style. I feel like black and white, especially back in the day, they did not sell super well, and I know there's a fondness for it nowadays, but they did not sell super well back then. And a lot of those Pokemon are not as beloved as other generations. I'm gonna be getting this wrong, I'm pretty sure, so correct me if I am, but in the Terra leak that happened a few years ago for Pokemon and Game Freak in general, there was a talk between the different companies about black and white not selling as well because and like internationally, and that there was a lot of complaints about the older Pokemon not being in the game. Now I'll be fully straight up with you. I did fall out of Pokemon during black and white. I played, I think it was white, and then it took a long time before I went back to play the sequels, but it wasn't because necessarily of my distaste for the Pokemon in the region. I actually like them. At the time I didn't. I like them now. Except Unfezant, that is the stupidest Pokemon ever made. I went through like a really dumb phase in high school at the time is when those games came out, where I was like, yeah, Pokemon's for losers, I gotta stop playing this. And then after a year I was like, oh, I miss Pokemon. So that was why I stopped playing around that time. Turns out a lot of people just didn't really like the Pokemon designs of that era and really wished for the older designs. So in that discussion that was leaked, they had already began pre-planning to put a lot of older Pokemon in the next game, which ended up being Generation 6 Kalos. And that ended up being why you would receive the Kanto starters. There were way less new Pokemon and a lot more older Pokemon brought in. It was to really bring back a lot of, I guess, lapsed fans from Generation 5. I feel like a black and white remake in this HD 2D style would fit a lot, because even though Diamond and Pearl were kind of the first ones that had the 3D models on top of like having pixels, it was really black and white that took those 3D buildings and stuff like that and like really tried to get the camera work, the cinematography down pat, you know what I mean? Things like when you're going across that bridge, or is it Castelia City? It's not like an intersection, it's just like this big like crosswalk, I guess, in the middle of the city. There's also like a park, I believe, a lot of like 3D camera work that could be really beautifully done in HD 2D. Seeing Johto done by this creator online really sparked this thought for me, and I kind of hope that even though I don't mind this stuff like Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, I think there is this desire from the community to go back to 2D Pokemon. And I'll be straight, I actually don't think the mainline games should go back to 2D. I think that they should stick to their vision that they've been doing since, I guess, really since Sword and Shield with the Wild area. I think what they're doing is great. And I feel like with the Switch 2, a lot of people going back and giving Scarlet and Violet a chance again, really seeing those games are actually pretty great. I love Scarlet and Violet. They just had a lot of technical issues. I feel like a lot of people are really seeing like, oh, okay, actually there's some great stuff here. And with subsequent entries, voice acting, please, Pokemon can really get into a spot that is great with, you know, the open world style. However, I do think we should get some classic Pokemon in there with that beautiful sprite work. I remember there was an interview with Junichi Masuda. I wish I could pull it up. I don't remember off the top of my head, but he was asked about why Pokemon was not doing 3D while everyone else was doing 3D, and he said something along the lines of, well, I believe that we can get the sprites to look more like alive. And to be quite honest with you, even though games like Coliseum and Exegol Darkness and Stadium and Battle Revolution, all those games do a great job at making Pokemon feel alive in 3D. Yeah, dude, when Unova introduced like the moving sprites, I was like, oh my God, this is fuck yeah, dude. You know what I mean? I definitely see where he was coming from. We got to give 2D Pokemon a chance. And I think Black and White could be the games to do that with. What do you think?